grain rice. And he's denied it. Okay? He has. This actually happened. I asked him the question. He denied it. But parents of teenagers, we all know, like, you're never quite sure if you're getting the real goods. And of course, there's no point in even taking him for x-rays because it's going to be opaque. And so now our dinner time has become just really stressful because we don't know if he's inhaled rice with insect eggs and larvae that are going to lead to this infestation of vermin. And both my wife and I, we've watched those mummy movies years ago where those Egyptian beetles, the scarabs, come out of the mouth. And we just worry, like every time we're eating supper and he opens his mouth, is this when it's going to happen? So, now obviously I'm mocking them, aren't I? Because it's just, we all intuitively know that really white table rice isn't toxic. But what I'm going to say next, it has to drive home, is first of all, you have to understand, let's say there was something toxic here. Let's say there was something in here, you threw it in the microwave and heated it up, it released dangerous fumes. If there was something toxic, I need you to understand that Health Canada has ample powers to protect you if the manufacturer wouldn't recall. Now, I'm not aware of it ever happening where there was an actual danger, because the manufacturer, could you imagine Health Canada has told you to recall, there's an actual danger and somebody gets hurt? Do you think you're going to survive a civil suit? Do you think you're going to survive or avoid going to jail for criminal negligence? No, you're not. So I'm not aware of it ever happening, but if it did happen, Health Canada could go to court and ask for an injunction. Say, hey, they're violating the Act, they're putting people at risk. Do you think any judge in Canada would not come out with a very strict order outlining exactly what the person had to do to ensure that nobody was at risk? And it's backed up by the police. It's a court order. They could apply for a search warrant and seize them and charge them criminally. Under the Hazardous Products Act, our old law, if there's a significant danger, the minister can make a binding order. It's like a court order. Just bang, doesn't have to go to court. The minister can make an order. The point I'm trying to make is under our old law, if there is a danger, Health Canada has plenty of powers to protect you, and you have to remember that. Because they're introducing this new Consumer Product Safety Act, where, yes, the old powers exist, they can still go to court, but they've written in for themselves a whole bunch of new powers. And these new powers don't adhere to the rule of law. That's the change. The change isn't that they couldn't protect you before. The change is now they don't have to use powers that adhere to the rule of law. You have to understand, A, what the rule of law is, and B, why it's so important. And in very simple terms, the rule of law is just simply the principle that before the state can take control over you, either to kill you or imprison you, or before the state can take control of your property, they have to be supervised by independent courts. That's what the rule of law is. Now, to understand how important that is, I always ask people, well, let's just imagine with me, let's go back into medieval times, before the rule of law. We're living in a feudal society where really the noble or king in the nearest castle, that's the state. They're the ones that have absolute control of your life. And so before the rule of law, if the state wanted to kill you or imprison you, guess what? The soldiers would come out of the castle and they'd just do their duty. And if the state wanted to access your property, take your property, the soldiers would just come and take your property. And I imagine, we don't know because we're not there, but I imagine people learned, if the state was coming to take their property, not to resist. Because you'd probably be killed. So when you're not in the rule of law, I think the populace learns to be somewhat complacent until things get to a boil and a revolt breaks out. Because history teaches us, time and time again, that revolutions are fought to establish the rule of law. And in fact, if you were to go and get home, pull out your dictionary and look up tyranny. What's tyranny? Tyranny is just simply the ability of the state to act arbitrarily. So it's in the state's discretion. And a tyranny doesn't even have to be bad. A tyranny can be established for good reasons. But it's become a negative term. It's become a pejorative term because we know when you give the state the power to act arbitrarily without supervision, that bad things eventually happen, regardless of how good the intentions were at the beginning. But it wasn't meant to be a negative term. We just take it that way because of our understanding of history. So my problem with this new bill is that it's giving the state the power to take control over property without court supervision. We're being told it's for the best of intentions, and it very well may be for the best of intentions. But bearing in mind, as I say, they have plenty of powers to protect us using the rule of law. Under this new law, literally an inspector can walk into a consumer business. This new law doesn't cover natural health products. This Consumer Product Safety Act is directed towards consumer goods. But an inspector could walk into any business dealing with consumer goods, whether you're a retailer, manufacturer, distributor, whether you're just shipping them, and basically seize them on the spot. They can seize your building. They can seize your truck. Do they need a court order? No. Do they have to report it to court? No. Which is kind of interesting, actually. The police, our regular police, in some situations have the power to seize without a warrant. I mean, if they pull you over and there's a bag of marijuana in the passenger seat, they don't have to apply for a warrant to seize it because it's in plain view. But even then, the police have to report what they seized to a justice within 24 hours and then ask for a court order, ask for permission to continue to hold it. Otherwise, they have to give it back. Because we've learned the hard way over the years, you cannot allow the state to take property and not have it supervised. Otherwise, then we're in tyranny, aren't we? So, just by definition, I don't mean to alarm anyone or be sensational, but it's just, that's the fact. So, but under this new law, if they seize your property, no, they don't have to report it to a court. There's no requirement at all. And there's no time limit on how long they can hold it. The only way they have to give it back is if they've seized it for non-compliance, and they can seize it for other reasons, and you can show you're in full compliance, then they have to give it back. But we know under the Food and Drug Act there's a similar power which is being challenged in court and a similar provision. And I'm just not aware of them ever giving property back. Like, in my career, I've never seen it happen. I mean, maybe it has and I don't know about it. So, and in fact, is Dr. Dahl here? I don't want to single him out. No, not yet. He said that he's going to try and attend, but he is at the show, and I'm going to be speaking about him a little later. Under this new Consumer Product Safety Act, the state can also, in some circumstances, keep your property. Like, it becomes their property without a court order. Of course, under this new act, the minister can order a recall, where before they can't. And in fact, this one is particularly galling to me because how misleading it is. And it's been the main talking point of the government for the bill. Almost every time the Minister of Health opens her mouth to promote the bill, she says, you know, if there's a dangerous product out there and the manufacturer won't recall, Health Canada currently doesn't have the power to order a recall. And that's really misleading. And here's how it's misleading. It's true. They don't have the power to order a recall. But it's misleading because when you hear that, when the average Canadian hears if there's a dangerous product and the manufacturer won't recall and we don't have the power to order a recall, we think they don't have the power to protect us. And that's the message we're supposed to get. It's supposed to generate fear in us. Oh, they can't protect us if a manufacturer won't recall. Well, what's wrong with going to a court and getting an injunction? Court order, ordering them to recall. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with getting a warrant and seizing the product, solving the problem? What's wrong with the ministerial order? If there's a significant danger, you can make a ministerial order. Oh, I know what the problem is. All those things adhere to the rule of law. So the first two are court orders. You've got to go to court. And the court's going to supervise everything. The ministerial order under the Hazardous Products Act, it's supervised. It's got to be tabled in Parliament so everyone can see it was made. It only lasts for 14 days unless the cabinet confirms it. And do you understand why that's a safety thing? Is it allows the minister, if the minister's unsure, because an inspector could be on the spot and not be sure, well, they can, as a precaution, take control over the property But it expires if after 2 weeks they realize, oh, it actually wasn't a danger, we can just let it lapse. And if they do